Today is Tuesday, June 9th, 2015, and we are here today to interview Judy Mouch.
Correct.
Our first question is, we would like to know about your journey of faith. What led you to the religious life?
Actually, that's pretty easy. I grew up in a very Catholic family. I went to Catholic grade school, run by the Sisters of Mercy. And then I went on to high school, not to a Mercy high school, but to the school that my mother had gone to. So, you know, everybody goes to the same schools.
In Detroit?
In Toledo, Ohio.
In Toledo?
Yeah, I'm a native Ohioan.
Oh, okay.
And so not only was my family very Catholic, but my parents were very involved in social ministries, social justice. They were part of a group called the Catholic Family Movement, CFM, and they and their peers had huge families. Everybody went to a Catholic school. We all hung out together, and when I finished high school, there were 3 choices. You became a secretary, a nurse, a teacher, or maybe 4 choices. You entered a religious community. So
I got married.
Very few.
Very few?
When I graduated, very few jumped into married life right away.
Okay.
So I graduated from Notre Dame Academy in Toledo. We were the largest graduating class with 200 students. And of the 200 of us, 25 entered religious life.
Wow. And stayed?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. But many did. And I'll see some of them this weekend because we're celebrating our 50th graduation from high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that put it about 1960?
Yeah, 65.
65?
Okay. Yeah.
So why did you choose the Sisters of Mercy as opposed to another religious order?
Because I was introduced to the sisters early on. And the sisters at the parish I went to school at were very involved with families. And that was really sort of, it was before Vatican II. And they loved to have fun.
We've been hearing that.
There was just a sense of hospitality and fun, and they were willing to get invested in the lives of their students. And I knew that that's the community I wanted to go to because I went to another high school run by another religious community. I had a fantastic education, but the charism was different. I just didn't feel attracted to that. So I entered the Sisters of Mercy.
Good. So what did you study as you were going through your training?
As a sister? Or?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So what did you become besides a sister?
I have a very convoluted past.
We want to hear it all. We want to hear it all.
When I entered the community, everybody took pretty much the same, philosophy, theology courses, the core curriculum. And then we were able to select a major. My major was English and sociology, so I had a double major. And I was probably about a junior in college when I realized that I did not want to teach high school. And about the time I had discovered that, the community was looking for some of us to go into nursing. I had worked at a hospital in high school, part-time to make a little money. And I thought, I'm interested in taking care of sick people. My grandmother had died when I was a junior in high school. It was one of those peak experiences in life. I was scared to death to see somebody die. I'd spent a lot of time with her during the summer. But I realized that death isn't as scary as you would think. So I thought, I'll do this. So I went to the university. I moved from our college, Edgecliff College, to the University of Cincinnati. 3 of us went, and pretty much started all over.
I was going to say, that's a big leap going into sciences after the liberal arts.
Well, I had some sciences, and I had taken a lot of science in high school, so it wasn't like, learning a completely new language. But back in those days, there was no skipping anything, and there was no accelerated program. So you just started out as a sophomore in the nursing program, and you took everything everybody else did. My senior year was a little easier because I had all of the stuff that wasn't nursing. Yeah, so it took me 7 years, and I can really empathize with my students who have been here for various reasons, 5 years or 6 years. I know what it's like. It was all I could do to get out of bed and go to school every day because I was sick of it.
Yeah.
Because all of my classmates from the novitiate were already, working in a ministry.
Yeah. So what was your role at Mercy College?
I taught community health nursing. I pretty much taught community health nursing all but 1 year. I was at Mercy for 4 years, and I went to Mercy out of necessity. At the time I started at Mercy College, I was directing a federally funded migrant health project. And I had done the needs assessment. It was a huge project for all of DHS Region 5, which includes 6 states, and their focus was what the migrant farm workers needed in terms of health care, because the government already was funding them, and I think the government really wanted us to find out if the services were being delivered. Well, that's... So anyway, I just graduated from grad school, and I had a more holistic approach to things. So we came up with a great plan. It's still in operation all these years, since 1983.
Wow.
And we came up with 2 projects that we wanted to do. First was to identify, through the use of a map that was in Spanish and English, and used pictograms as well as the printed word, a map that showed where the services for the migrants were here in Michigan. And then the next year we would add other states. That was year 1. Year 2 was to develop what's now called a community health worker program, but at that time we called it the Camp Health Aide program. It was based on the barefoot health worker model, developed in China by a sociologist from the United States. So the purpose was to prepare informal leaders from the migrant farm worker communities, the camps, to work among their peers, to deliver basic healthcare information, to make referrals, to do first aid, to just identify who needed to be seen. And, the government thought that was great. The government didn't give us enough money to do it. I needed a Spanish-speaking nurse because while I know some Spanish, I wasn't fluent enough. So I said, okay, this is the way the Sisters of Mercy do things. There's more than one way to accomplish a task. So I said, I'll go teach at Mercy College. And I was still running this agency. I taught at Mercy College part-time. The salary that I got from Mercy went to pay my Spanish-speaking nurse. Wow.
Wow.
So I did that for 2 years.
So the community allowed that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Wow.
You got to do what you got to do.
Right. However.
Yeah.
And then you went full-time.
And then I went full-time. I was adjunct for 2 years. And once I left the directorship of this project, I felt I could work full-time at Mercy, which I did for 2 years. And then I took a 4-year hiatus to get a master's in pastoral ministry. So my bent in nursing has always been community health, which focused on the vulnerable, and a blend of health and spiritual care. So that's what I did. And when I came back, of course, we were a different entity. We were the University of Detroit Mercy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you joined this.
So I joined this.
Do you have a favorite story or a favorite memory of your time at Mercy College?
Well, one of the stories involves a student, and she must remember it too because she has presented in the SDO community health course for another professor, and she told this story. Community is different every day. You never know exactly what situation you're going to walk into, but you have to be prepared. And at that time, we did most of our work in home care. So my students were at Mercy Primary Care Clinic at Warren and Connor, and we sent students out to accompany a nurse who was following up on high-risk patients that were seen at the clinic. So, East Detroit is a tough place to be.
Yeah, when you said Connor.
Mm-hmm. So, the students followed this nurse, and then she would identify patients that she felt would be good matches for the student to make independent visits. So I always told the students, they're very squeamish about you're asking me to go see somebody all by myself. What am I going to talk about? What if something comes up and I don't know what to do? And we did not have cell phones, so they had to be a little bit more prepared. So I tried to cover all the bases before they went. I had one student who went to a home, and she felt very uneasy. She got in the front door and she said, I don't know that this is good. I believe it may have been a situation where there was concern about domestic violence, which was not why the student was going, but this was not her first visit either. So she came back, and she was, I guess, as all students would be, I'm not measuring up. I'm not doing what I was told to do for today, so there's going to be a consequence I don't like. I was fine. And I had always told the students, look, if you feel uncomfortable, you have to listen to your intuition.
Right.
There's no harm in being safer than safe. There is a problem if you don't feel safe and you proceed. So that is one of the stories that I remember. Another story is about one of my current peers. I taught her at Mercy College of Detroit. This was back in the late 80s when AIDS was just, becoming recognized as a problem. And this student was making home visits. I believe we were with the Wayne County Health Department. We made a lot of mother and baby visits, and she was making visits and befriended a mother and a baby. The baby had AIDS. Well, there was so much commotion on the part of parents and faculty. It was pretty awful because you, as a nurse, as a doctor, as anybody in healthcare, you never really know what you're dealing with. And we knew then how to take precautions. So anyway, she was not allowed to go back. That was a very difficult position to be in as a faculty member. So she was not allowed to go back, but she ran into this baby in the emergency room at Children's where she was working after she graduated. And of course now she had to take care of the child, which she was very happy to do. And when the child died, she was one of the few people at the funeral. And she still talks about that today, and how it was that merciful care that really impelled her to continue to find ways to meet the needs of that mother and child. So she sought her out. Most students don't go to funerals for their patients.
True.
But she did, and I'm sure it wasn't easy to do that. But anyway, so I like to think that not just at Mercy College, but I think here as well, we try to prepare our nursing students to look at needs beyond the physical.
Compassion,
right.
Empathy,
compassion, going the extra mile, being generous, not just with your time with one patient, but being generous with your time with your colleagues, like helping somebody else out.
Well, I'm sure that was a big comfort to the mother.
Yes, it was.
That this nurse or student nurse showed up at the funeral.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big comfort.
Yeah.
So as a sister of mercy, you're kind of telling us what impact did your work have on the students at Mercy College?
Yeah.
Did I ask that question already?
Yeah, we're trying to get it. How do you think, because you're a sister, how do you think that impacted the students as opposed to another instructor that may not have been a sister? What do you think that you brought that was special?
At Mercy College?
Well, really any time now.
Yeah. The one thing that concerns me, I didn't find it so much at Mercy College, but I do find it here, is that anybody who carries a religious title is perceived to have an air of superiority or authority that students don't relate to easily. You tend to get put in a box of, oh dear, don't do anything because you're going to be thought of differently or you're going to be judged. So I find that to be a constant battle. And I try to work with my students. I have high standards and I'm not willing to let them go because, in my opinion, you only have one chance to save a person's life or to kill somebody. And so, I have very high standards and I keep my students to that, and I know that I'm perceived as tough. But that's the way it is.
I always thought the toughest teachers were the best.
Well, I've had a lot of compliments from my students, and the subject that I teach is not, as we say, guts and glory, drips and strips. It's about looking at how a person fits into the community and what resources are available for them in the community. It's about helping people understand that it's all of our responsibilities to take care of ourselves. We don't necessarily have to be taken care of or cured in a hospital. But of course, when you're young, you like to do things. And so to sit and talk to a patient or to educate them isn't as exciting as sticking a needle in them to draw some blood or to start an IV or to put them on a respirator. And, I have to say, I did it. I never was in love with that. I knew when I went into nursing school, I wanted to be a community health nurse.
Okay.
So I served my time in the hospital.
Segues right into our next question. How has your ministry changed over the years? The city of Detroit, the state of Michigan, and with the Sisters of Mercy?
I'm not quite sure if it has changed. As I said, I always wanted to work in the community. I've been blessed by my community. They've trusted me to make good choices about my ministries. I've always lived in the city. I participate in the activities in the city, both civic and community in my neighborhood organization. If anything's changed, it's just that new opportunities keep coming up to find ways to, make life a little bit easier or better for others.
So what are some of the things that you do?
I am currently on the homeless committee for JZoo. We used to sponsor the homeless shelter once a week through Cass Community Social Services. But as the persons who were in charge of that have met up with other situations in their families that won't allow them to really devote full time, we decided as a parish that we would find other ways to reach out to the poor. So I'm on the outreach committee, and we just prepared 200 hygiene kits to give to persons who are homeless, and so we're distributing those at the Noah Project that's located at Central United Methodist Church and at St. Peter and Paul Warming Center. I do some work as a faith community nurse at JZoo. I participate in some blood pressure screenings for them. I visit some homebound. This past year has been very, very busy for me. I've had a huge teaching load, so I have not been able to be as involved in some of the Mercy activities in the city, but one of them was, of course, the water shutoffs. And I was not able to participate except I wrote my letters. And what else? I'm quite involved in the faith community nurse ministry sponsored by the Archdiocese of Detroit, and there are several hospitals here in the healthcare systems here in the area that sponsor faith community nurses. So I'm involved with them, and we develop programs, retreats during the year. Mm-hmm.
Very busy.
I'm pretty busy.
So, I'm sorry, I'm going to
go ahead.
So the faith community nurses, what does that involve? Is that geared toward other health professionals, helping them, or is it's patient focus?
The focus of faith community nursing is health promotion and disease prevention within a faith community. The focus is on how you help people integrate their health, whether it's good health or poor health, with their experience of their own faith. We're all body, mind, and spirit. And most of the time we don't recognize that spirit part too much. So I started the Faith Community Nurse Program at University of Detroit Mercy. We started it in 1994 in collaboration with Trinity Health, which was at that point Mercy Health Services. And for 3 years I worked closely with Mercy Health Services, and we had education preparation programs for these nurses. And then when that became too much for Mercy Health Services to do, they gave us money and said, here, develop it on your own. So beginning in 1998, I offered the Faith Community Preparation course for nurses from the metropolitan area. At one time, we even videotaped it and sent it up to Grayling so that Sister Luann could use it up there. Now you could probably do it on YouTube. So,
true.
Anyway, we're just starting that course back up in the fall. We had to take a little hiatus. The impetus for it has sort of changed as healthcare has become more and more business. Hospitals don't see where faith community nurses are bringing anything to them, and they don't want to pay nurses. St. John's Hospital in Detroit used to have 20 paid faith community nurses.
And now they have none?
And now they have 2 liaisons. That's it. Everybody else is a volunteer. So, it's hard. to try to make a ministry out of that when you're only part-time. When I was a faith community nurse at St. Luke Parish in Detroit, which I was running the Migrant Health Project, I was teaching at Mercy College, and I was the faith community nurse for St. Luke's. It was a fantastic experience because I knew all of those parishioners, and I knew where they were. A lot of them were elderly, and they were looking at changes in their own health status and maybe in the family configuration. That was a wonderful experience, and I was able to take some of my community health nursing students down to St. Luke's. They did their clinical experience with me there. It was great.
You've been kind of telling us piecemeal what you've been doing over the years. So continue to tell us what have you not told us, and how does what you've been doing also correlate to the mission of the Sisters of Mercy, which you've been doing, but there are gaps. I think your 4 years of study in pastoral ministry.
Right.
Where did you go? What did you do those 4 years?
I stayed right here in Detroit.
Oh, you stayed in Detroit?
I stayed in Detroit. I went to Marygrove. I took a number of courses in spirituality at Sacred Heart Seminary, and I continued to work. I worked at the parish. I did not quit. It wasn't 4 years off to go to get another master's.
4 years off. So you just want to study.
Yes, I meant it was 4 years that I was not teaching.
Okay.
But I missed the teaching, and so when I finished my degree, I said, okay, it's time to go back, and I started as adjunct at the University of Detroit Mercy. So I was adjunct for 3 years, and then I came full-time when a position opened up in 95.
And you want to continue teaching?
Yeah. Well, most of the time. Most of the time.
Okay, I think you...
Can I jump in?
Sure.
What's the NOAA project?
The NOAA project is a program that is outreach to the homeless. It's sponsored by Cass United Methodist Church down in East Adams. Okay. They have a number of programs. I'm working with a former Jesuit volunteer corps member who is in charge of their bag lunch program. So he hooked up with him. Yeah, Cass United Methodist Church has done a lot of work in the city. Those Methodists are very social justice oriented, almost as much as the Catholic.
Our next question wasn't really part of our initial interview, but given the recent passing of Sister Kenise, we're wondering if you have a favorite story or a favorite memory of her.
The favorite memory of her is just what month are we in?
June.
2 months ago.
2 months ago.
When we were at Mercy Education Project to celebrate her award, and she was recognized for having been the first director, and so I greeted her in the gathering space, and she looked good. And she had this beautiful pink jacket on that I love pink. So I said to her, Kenise, do you feel as good as you look? And she said, I feel really good. She said, I'm coughing a little more than I'd like. End of discussion. And for me, Kenise was just somebody, she never talked about herself. She never complained about whatever she wasn't feeling that day. She was okay, so this is the next challenge. Let's just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, we've been hearing
that.
Yeah,
she was just a marvelous friend and sister and colleague. Yeah.
Now, didn't ask you ahead of time, but did you know Sister Mary Agnes Mansour?
Yes, a little.
Sister Agnes.
Not
Mary.
much. Because,
Okay.
see, I entered in Cincinnati. I'm not a
Yeah,
Detroit
I
sister.
was going to say,
So I did not know, I don't even know, was she president
she was
when
president of Mercy College.
Yes, but I don't know if she was president when I
you were
started.
there.
I honestly don't remember. So I knew of her a little bit. She lived across the street from me for a couple of years when we lived in the Mercy Ghetto behind the former Mount Carmel Hospital. There were about 8 convents there. And houses with, 3, 4, 5 people living in them. And we would get together regularly. But Agnes was very, she was busy. She was a busy person, either running the college or serving at the state level in the Department of Social Services. So I have to say I did not know her well.
Okay. Last question. Is there anything that we haven't discussed that you would like to tell us or to expand upon? I'm not sure we got your whole life.
I don't know, but I'll say this. For me, Catherine McCauley has always been my idol in some ways. I first heard about Catherine McCauley when I was in the 1st grade.
1st grade, wow.
And I went to a school, was St. Catherine of Siena. For the longest time, I thought Catherine McCauley and Catherine of Siena were one and the same person. But I was just enthralled with this woman who was able to make so many things happen and who was so driven to help those who could not help themselves. So she has always been my idol. She's what keeps me getting up in the morning and doing things that I'm sick of doing. Like there are days where you say, oh no, not another day of this. But I think of Catherine and say, you know what? I'm one of her daughters. This is what you do.
How much longer do you think you'll teach? And when you quit, do you have an idea of what you want to do when you leave academia?
I don't know how much longer I'll teach full-time.
Mm-hmm.
When I leave, I've got a lot of ideas.
Okay.
I've always wanted to work in the foreign missions.
Oh.
And there are probably a couple of places that I would be able to go. I like policy development. Excuse me. And so I might be able to find something to do to assist those in our health systems. I've been invited by the health system in Cincinnati, the Mercy Health in Cincinnati, to look at becoming one of their corporate board members. I don't know whether I would do that, because my take on healthcare is a little bit different, I'm sure, than the big corporations. But I would love to be able to influence how people look at health as it's delivered, healthcare as it's delivered in the community setting. Because everybody comes from a neighborhood, everybody comes from a community, and that's where they go back to when they leave the hospital. They still have, to deal with that. And I don't know if you've had this experience, but you don't stay in a hospital very long anymore. You're lucky if you're there for 48 hours, unless there's something really, really wrong. And then you go home. And
Sometimes
hopefully,
with tubes.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You better know what to do.
Exactly.
Or you better have somebody who can figure out what to do. So, I'm not quite sure, but I feel I'll find something. I'm not somebody to sit around.
I got that impression.
So have you been part of the team that goes down to Guyana?
No. And part of that is because they go during spring break. I have learned from the 2 spring breaks I did, and actually 3, it's very taxing. You go down, you're there, you're working, which you should be. You're also in much different environment, and you're sort of trying to take that in and process it. And then you come back and you start teaching. And until this year, my class days have always been Monday.
Oh.
And I had 220 students this year.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
You need,
I cannot
need
do
to
it
take that
and
break.
it's not that I don't do anything. I helped coordinate the NCLEX review program here during the spring break, but at least I wasn't in another world. It's not fair to I don't feel it's fair to the students to have to be standing in front of them and not have my stuff together, you know?
Yes.
It's hard enough for them to sit through these courses, especially my course, because they're just not interested in it. They don't understand how it impacts their life or anybody else's, really. This is a change, quite honestly. It was not this way at Mercy College, and not that it had anything to do with Mercy College. The whole world was different.
Yes.
The whole world was different. Right now, healthcare is a business.
Yes.
It's a business, it's run on a business model, and the students pick that up quite quickly. And I feel very, very sorry for our students. They are working, some of them, 2 and 3 jobs to be able to come to school here. So, quite honestly, by the time you get to be a senior, the money in your pocket looks a little more inviting than to sit through these courses as a senior nursing student, because most of them are more cognitive and theoretical. They're not hands-on, do things. Although the community health we do projects in the community, and I think they're always amazed that they can actually do something that's a little bit bigger and be successful at it. We've had some really good projects. Not to my credit, but to my adjuncts' credit.
Okay.
Yeah, they do it.
Any other questions? Sister, this has been great.
Oh, well, thank you.
It's just
You made it easy.